The book of Job. It's a profound, unique book in the Bible because of lots of reasons. It's a obscure land far from Israel. All the main characters of Job's not even an Israelite. It's anonymous. Well, it's even set the story, no clear historical settings. Intentional. The author doesn't want us to not be distracted by the historical questions. We want to be focused on the story of Job and the question raised to suffering. And the book of Job is a clear design, a short narrative prologue, an epilogue, and a central body, identity and poetry, representing conversation and called the friends. And the conversation is concluded by a series of poetic preaches and let's dive in and see all the works together. In the prologue, the story of Job is a blameless, righteous, and honor God, and he's a super good guy. And we're transported to a heavenly realm. And God is holding court and a staff team. And it's a very common Old Testament how God runs the world. And a human figure, the Mesatan, in Hebrew, the accuser, the prosecutor. God preserves Job as a truly righteous man, and the accuser challenges God's policies and join righteous people like Job. The only reason Job is it blames you because you bless him with prosperity. Let Job suffer, and then we'll see how righteous he is. And God agrees. Let the accuser let afflict suffering to Job. As point of the story, we're like, what? Why did God do that? We assume the book is why allows good people to suffer. And you read on, but the question, but it doesn't answer that question. But nothing actually answers that question. The prologue is a real question. What does question trying to get at? Like why God's justice and how God operates the universe according to the strict principle. And on the questions at the end of the book, not the beginning, and the ultimate reason why Job is suffering, not revealed. And the prologue includes. And the prayer of Job, his beautiful wife, and his by three friends, and the bride, Winslow and Custom, Elad and Bildad and Zorad, Timitin, and they're all Israelites, and the best of ancient Near Eastern thinking and thoughts. Here's the main part of the book. First, Job speaks. Job is going to speak and follow his friend. And respond to his friend, and another friend respond to his friend, and so on back to forth, and three cycles. And this whole debate is a focus on three questions. Is God truly just? And does run the universal and the strict universal justice? If so, how is Job's suffering to be explained? As we see, and working a big assumption, how God justice work like. And all simple thing in the universe should operate according to the strict principle of justice. As you're wise and good person, you honor God. Good things will happen to you. God will reward you. If you're evil and you're stupid and you do sinful things, bad things will happen to you and He will punish you. Job's console argument is this: I'm innocent. That's what Job said. And the application is suffering. It's not divine justice. All this prologue is true. God Himself said, Job is righteous and blameless. Job concludes the arguments God doesn't run the world according to justice, or worse, God is stupidly unjust. His friends, on their hands, they bring it different. The argument is just an implication of God runs the world according to justice, and they conclude Job must have done something sin to punish him like this, and even possible sins that Job must have committed. And Job protests all of them. He says so fed up with the friends, and he finally gets up with them, and he becomes a case directly to God. And something to be aware of: Job is on an emotional roller coaster. Job, why God denied God's just and why He is not just, and Job. He accused God as a bully, and he accuses God as a blameless, and he's horrified. He wants to believe God is truly just, but he can't believe it. in a section, Job brings one last of his innocence, and the man's explanation and shows up personally. And a surprise friend shows up, Elihu the Buzai. He's not an Israelite. He's not a Hebrew name. Elihu is the same assumption as and his friend, and he argues God is just, and implies God runs according to justice. But Elihu got a fully conclusion why good people suffer. It's not sin from the past. Make suffering as a warning to help people to avoid sin in the future, because he used pain and suffering to teach the character and a valuable lesson. He doesn't know why they're suffering. But Job is a while to accuse God of being unjust. Job doesn't even respond to Elihu. And Job, the mystery remains. And God shows up in the world and responds to Job personally. And the first job accusation, he's unjust and competent in the universe. God takes Job to the universe and asks one of the questions: where are the order, where the origin of the cosmos? And Job architected the earth, organized the constellation. Has Job ever commanded the sunrise and control the weather? God controls all these eyes on all over these things. And Job never conceive. And Job calls the detail how reaping happened, the mountain goats, and how deer give birth, and the feeding patterns of lions, how donkeys. What's the point of all of this? Job's assumption is all his friends, how God run the world according to justice. On the other assumption is a deeper one, and the deepest, a wider perspective makes such a claim how God operates in the world. God responds with a virtual destruct assumptions. A world is a vast conference, and God has his eyes on everything. And Job, on the other hand, only a small horizon experience from draw from. His view of the world is very limited. He's limited on justice, and it's his own point of view. He needs to see in an infinitely view, because Job is not in a position to make a huge accusation against God. And God makes a Torah, and Job, anyone strict of injustice and justice, and how evil deed and how every moment will precedes retribution, and carrying out on justice is extremely complex and a black and white. And Job and the friends, how they think. Like, leave with God's last point. He showed me pre-practice Bennett and Levet are poetic of hippo and a crocodile, but they refer to well-known creatures in ancient Eastern mythology and used elsewhere in the Bible as symbols of disorder and danger of existing God's good world. And the creature is not evil, but God's not proud of them. But knows they're not safe. But God's world is amazing, but it's not perfect. Or it's not always safe. God has order and beauty, but God is also wild and dangerous. The world. That's why it's two defective creatures. Christian and Job suffering. Why is there suffering in the world? Job asks God, and why there's wild animals and stuff. And God doesn't explain why. We live in a simply complex world that's not designed to prevent such suffering. And that's God's response to Job. And Job challenges God's justice, and Job says it's injustice. And God told him, and it's not, you don't have the right explanation to make that claim. And God told him to trust in God's character. And Job responds, apologizes for accusing God, and he acknowledges God in a short epilogue. And the friends are wrong, but the idea of God's justice are too simple in the complexity of God's world. And God says, God has spoken rightly about me. It's surprising. It can't reply to everything. We know Job drew hasty and wrong conclusions, but God still approves of honesty and Job's struggle, and simply just wanted to talk to God. And And that's the right way to talk to God of the struggle of prayer. And Job, his family and his fortune and all his family restored. Not good for behavior, but generous God. And that's the end of the book. And the book of Job doesn't really unlock the poses why bad things happen in the world, but it invites us to trust God's wisdom. If we do encounter suffering, we want to try to figure out why there's a reason for it. We search for reasons. We tend to simplify God, or we accuse God based on limited entities. We honestly to give our pain and grief to God and to trust that God cares and He knows what He's doing. And that's what the book of Job is all about.